The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson is an amazing read that can help you understand how to better manage your life and emotions. It teaches you how to be more mindful of your thoughts and behavior and how to focus on what truly matters. The book also gives readers the tools they need to prioritize their mental health and well-being in a chaotic world full of chaos and stress. This book will help you determine where your true values lie so you can make decisions that reflect those values instead of settling for what others deem important or valuable. Additionally, this book provides helpful insight from experts on topics such as relationships, goal setting, career paths, self-confidence, money management, lifestyle choices, pain management, and much more. This book is perfect for anyone looking to make a positive change in their life. It helps you understand the importance of taking responsibility for yourself and learning how to be content with life even when things don't go your way. Idea 1. Being happy doesn't come from trying to do better. Manson says that the media, entertainment, and advertising are always telling us to look for pleasure, wealth, success, experiences, friendships, possessions, beauty, and a good body. These signals, on the other hand, often make us think about what we don't have, which makes us feel sad. Another subject is helping oneself. Experts tell us to always look on the bright side, but this may not be a good idea. Instead, it offers quick fixes, like telling yourself positive things in front of a mirror or a simple formula for financial success. Instead of fixing the problems that make us unhappy, these choices just show us what we're missing. Manson says that we are addicted to false, shallow ideals because we are constantly pressured and have no good answers. This makes us think that more is better, even though pursuing these goals might be bad for our health. Despite the short-term highs, this can lead to feelings of guilt and pressure to overextend oneself in order to meet society's standards. We might also try to persuade ourselves that we deserve a life without pain and go to great lengths to avoid disappointment, setbacks, and hard situations. Idea 2. Choose carefully. Manson says that we care too much all the time. To put the most important things first and get rid of the rest, we need a set of good goals and standards. To make things worse, we worry too much about the wrong things. Having more of what society thinks is important, money, status, etc., won't make you happier. To be happy, you need to live by good principles and make good choices. Even though they are wealthy, many famously successful people have said in public that they are unhappy with their lives. This proves Manson's point. The suicide of Kurt Cobain, the lead singer and guitarist for Nirvana, is a sobering reminder that meeting society's standards of success doesn't mean you'll be happy. Nirvana is one of the most popular bands of all time, but even with all that success, he had problems with mental illness and drug abuse. When he was 27 years old, Cobain killed himself. Manson says that self-help gurus are wrong when they say that you can be happy all the time. Struggle, hardship, and even failure are all parts of being successful. There is always something bad about something good. For instance, being physically fit requires painful exercise. You can't enjoy something valuable if you spend all your time trying to avoid something bad. Giving a damn about less and putting your energy into the things that matter most is, therefore, the key to a happy life. Idea 3. We can't get out of a cycle. Manson says that humans are different from animals because we can think in abstract ways and think about ourselves. When we combine this power with our desire to be happy all the time, it can lead to a destructive feedback loop in which bad feelings get worse and worse as soon as something goes wrong. We've been taught by our culture that having feelings like guilt, worry, or dread is wrong, so when we do, we feel bad about it. Manson says that the only way to stop the emotional feedback loop is to care less. Tell yourself, I feel bad and things aren't going well, but it's okay. Because of this, you no longer have to punish yourself every time you feel bad. Idea 4. What does it mean not to care? Manson makes it clear that not giving a fuck does not mean that you should not care about anything at all. To give a fuck, on the other hand, means that you having confidence in one's own moral code instead of blindly following what other people do. When you know what's most important to you, you can ignore what other people say and do what you think is right. Learning the hard way that you can be happy if you realize that less is more and focus on what's important. This way of thinking helps you focus on what really matters in life, like close relationships, meaningful work, friends who are there for you, and a stable relationship. Even when trying to do big things, a laid-back attitude is important. Stop trying so hard all the time. You might do better at something if you don't care as much about it. Stopping your fixation may help you feel less stressed and make progress in many parts of your life. Most of the time, the people who reach their goals are the ones who care the least about it. Idea 5. People are naturally prone to feeling unhappy. Manson says that our bodies are hardwired for sadness and pain. Because they were unhappy and afraid, our ancestors set out to find, build, and protect a better way of life for future generations. They are a tool from the past of our species' evolution that still helps us try to get better today. So we're always going to feel unfulfilled because we're built to want more and be unhappy with what we already have. Dissatisfaction, whether it's in the form of physical or mental pain, shows us where our limits are and what we should pay attention to. It's not always bad because the lessons we learn from it help us make better choices in the future. For example, if we get burned on the stove, we know it's best to stay away from it. Discomfort tells us something is wrong and makes us want to find a solution. Idea 6. Struggles can be good in some ways. Usually, we see problems as things that need to be fixed for good before we can be happy. But Manson's analysis says that problems will never go away. In reality, this is a great thing because happiness and better living conditions come from problems being solved. Getting a job might seem like a good idea if you're having trouble making ends meet, but the time commitment and need to please your boss and superiors can actually add to your stress. You may face new problems, but you shouldn't let that get you down. It's all part of growing as a person. Manson says that instead of trying to get rid of all of life's problems, you should look for positive difficulties that are within your reach and make you feel good when you solve them. Good problems and solutions can be easy, like getting better sleep by going to bed earlier, or hard, like fixing a broken relationship by having hard conversations. It's important that these problems affect your everyday life and that their solutions will make your life better. Idea 7. They can't handle their feelings well. Manson thinks that the way people deal with their feelings is wrong because they either don't use logic and reason when making emotional decisions or use their feelings as an excuse for how they act. I know I keyed your car, but I was so angry I couldn't help it. Or I decided to paint full-time instead of going back to work. Feelings are normal and a part of life, but they shouldn't be the most important thing. Second, they are focused on how they feel. This can't work because our feelings change quickly. What makes us happy today might not make us happy tomorrow, and our nature makes us want more. When we try to find happiness, it feels like we're always looking for the Holy Grail, and when we don't find it, we feel like we failed. In psychology, this is called the hedonic treadmill. Sometimes, no matter how hard we try to change our lives, nothing seems to change. Also, there's always a price to pay for getting something good. Even if something makes us happy at first, there are bad things about it. For example, the person we marry is also the person we fight with. Our dream job has become a big source of stress. Number 3, they don't show how they feel. People are often told to hide their feelings, but this could make it harder for them to get feedback that could help them solve their problems. You will never be happy if you can't figure out how to solve problems. To be happy in life, you have to deal with the problems that come up. Many of our other core beliefs and assumptions are based on the idea that we can get pleasure by working hard and being dedicated. Since happiness can't be summed up in a formula, this premise has a lot of problems. Difficult feelings like sadness, discontent, anxiety, etc. are part of what makes us human and a key part of finding lasting happiness. Idea 8. Happiness comes from action. Happiness is not something that just happens to you or that you find in some mysterious way in a self-help book. Happiness is an action, something you do. We're interested in the idea that we can find lasting happiness and get rid of our problems for good. But in reality, we can't do that. If we're ever going to be happy, we need something to work on. Happiness comes from work, and the best way to use that work is to deal with problems. Trying to be happy is a process that never ends. We all want to be happy and happy with our lives. People never stop to think about how much pain they can take or what they are willing to fight for. Everyone wants the end result, but no one wants to work hard to get there. Most of us would much rather not have to work hard. Happiness comes from hard work, and hard work comes from problems. On the way to happiness, there will be many setbacks and humiliations. Anywhere you go, you can find a lot of problems. In reality, that's fine, as the goal is not to avoid problems. The point is to find a problem that you like to solve. Idea 9. We are all the same and different in our own ways. In the 1960s, the idea of strong self-esteem, which means having a good opinion of one's own skills, became popular. Research shows that people who have a positive view of themselves tend to do well in life and cause fewer problems. Motivational speakers have sprung up overnight, spreading a message that anyone can achieve great things. Scientists have spent decades looking at data and have come to a shocking conclusion about the next generation. We're not all special. Obviously, there is no point in praising yourself if you have no reason to do so. Challenges and setbacks can be good for you. They can make you more resilient and resourceful. One of the biggest problems with the self-esteem movement, which is very popular, is that it tells us we should be happy all the time. The movement's main measure of success is how people feel about themselves, though it might be more accurate to measure how much people believe and accept their bad selves. The message of the high self-esteem movement is that we should always remind ourselves that we are special. It's a well-known phrase. This has been said by many famous people like celebrities, politicians, actors, and actresses. These days, being average is seen as a bad grade. Many people worry that if they are just average, they won't grow or do anything important in the world. But if you know and accept that you're just an ordinary person, you'll be free to follow your own passions without self-criticism or big goals. So instead of seeing mediocrity as bad and trying to avoid it, try to see the good in it and be thankful for the little things. Idea 10. The success paradox. The more times you fail at something, the better you get at it, and improvement in any area is built on a lot of little failures. A common saying says that talent is overrated. Yes, in a word. It's more important how hard you work at something than how good you are at it already. A child will hurt himself or herself dozens of times while learning to walk, but the kid will try again and again until he or she gets it right. There are always going to be problems and bad feelings. If you want to be good at something, you have to be ready to fail a lot. As we age, we learn to be afraid of failing. Why? Mostly because of the media, how parents control their kids, and how we are taught to think. People put off taking the steps they need to reach their goals because they are afraid of failing. Manson's book, The Do Something Principle, encourages people to set process-oriented goals and then carry out those goals. His math teacher in high school would often tell the class, if you can't solve a problem, don't just sit around and think about it. Start working on it right away. Even if you have no idea what you're doing, if you just start working on it, the right ideas will eventually come to you. Manson used this advice and found that taking action is not only the result of being motivated, but also what gets him motivated in the first place. It's also related to awe and wonder, which is interesting. What you do sets off a chain of feelings that make you want to do more of the same thing. Whenever you don't have the drive to get things done, remind yourself that even small steps can lead to big results. You don't have to worry about anything. Also, give your efforts some time to see what happens, so the hope of future success could be a source of motivation for you. Idea 11. Don't do things that don't make your life better and think about your own death. Learning how to deal with being turned down is a very important skill. It's helpful because it helps you focus on what's most important and let go of the rest. We can't have principles if we never say no to anything. If you really want to do something, you have to say no to other opportunities that are similar. Being able to say no to small things, taking the time to work out disagreements, setting clear boundaries, and taking personal responsibility are all important parts of a healthy relationship that allow trust and acceptance to grow. And if we want to be truly happy and content in this life, we need to remember that we won't be here forever. Fear keeps us from thinking about, talking about, or even admitting death. Still, in a strangely backwards way, death is the source of light against which the darkness of everything else in life is measured. If there was no death, all of life's experiences would be pointless, and there would be no way to measure or value anything. Sometimes we need to take a step back and really think about how short life is in order to put our problems in perspective and really appreciate the life we have. You can't fully enjoy life if you spend too much time worrying about your own death or trying to plan for what will happen to your legacy after you die. To be truly happy and at peace, and to be able to live each day to the fullest, one must face death head-on and realize that their life is just a tiny speck in an endless universe. Idea 12. There are 3 different kinds of worth. Manson says that there are different levels of looking inside yourself. The only way to find out what really drives you is to ask yourself questions that get to the bottom of who you are. 1. Recognize your feelings. Manson says that you should be aware of when you're upset and be able to say what you're feeling. Like, this makes me sad. We don't naturally know how to put our feelings into words, so we have to work at it. Many people have been taught that they should keep their feelings inside, or that they should never show certain emotions. This leaves them with blind spots when it comes to how they feel, and it's up to them to learn to recognize and deal with those taboo emotions in healthy ways. Think about where your feelings come from. Manson says that the second step is to try to understand why you feel the way you do. You can make changes once you know why the problem is happening. A trained therapist may be able to help you figure out why you feel the way you do. Most of the time, the reasons have to do with how you define success and failure, which makes it hard. One thing that can make you angry is feeling like you failed. Asking why over and over can help you figure out what's going on until you can't figure out an answer. When you reach value level 3, you will be able to. Lastly, you should ask, how do I define success and failure? Which measure am I using to see how I'm doing? Our decisions are based on the most important things we believe in. How happy and content we are depends on the values that shape the kinds of problems we face. We base our feelings and thoughts on our values, so if we have a value that isn't helpful, it could throw off our emotional and mental balance. Idea 13. 5 more good qualities. The rest of Manson's book is about the 5 positive principles he thinks you should follow, even though they go against what pop culture and social media tell you to do. It's important to face problems head-on instead of sticking your head in the sand or distracting yourself with feel-good activities. Taking full responsibility for what you do and how things turn out in your life, no matter what role you played. Accepting ambiguity means being willing to say you could be wrong and that you don't know everything. Critiquing and questioning one's own convictions. Adopting a growth mindset means seeing setbacks as chances to find and fix your own flaws so you can get better. When you learn to say no, you learn to focus on a few goals and ignore the rest. It's important to practice both being assertive and being okay with being turned down. Thinking about death keeps you focused on what's important in life. Idea 14. There are problems that come with changing one's values. Manson says that you choose what you care about and what you don't care about. To change, all you have to do is care about something new. Even if it's easy to hear, there are some bad effects, even if they only last a short time. Not knowing what to expect. A change in values can shake up deeply held beliefs. You'll question whether you've made the right choice. Negative self-esteem. No matter how hard you try to follow the new rules and ideals, you can't help but think about the old ones. You will feel like a loser because you chose to get rid of them. Trying to deal with criticism. Your relationships will change in the same way that your ideals have changed. There will always be resistance. As Manson says, if you change your priorities and care about different things, you might feel uncertain. Embrace ambiguity is the second of the 5 alternative ideals that might change your life. Idea 15. Measure oneself. Manson says that your values are the things you care about and try to get. He says that standards are what you use to figure out if your actions match what you believe or not. What are the bare minimum requirements for you? In our minds, we all hold ourselves to some kind of internal standard. If they aren't good, we need to be able to see and understand them so we can change our values. Depending on how we use our morals and principles, they can either give us problems we like to solve or make our lives so hard and frustrating that we want to give up. Idea 16. You will always have to fight, but the key is to find the right kind of fight for you. So tell me, what do you really want? What do you think should be written on your tombstone? It's not easy to answer this question, is it? Sure, a lot of us say we want to be happy, have a family that supports us, and do work we enjoy. And it's not good to have goals that are too broad because they won't push you to act. If you want to get ahead in life, you'll have to work hard. To reach your goals, you will have to work hard and be very committed. Along the way, you may run into problems. If you don't have a goal you're determined to reach, you won't be able to get through this challenge. Let's say you want to get to the top and become CEO. CEO is a great job title because it gives you respect and power. The job of Chief Executive Officer, CEO, has never been easy and never will be. CEOs often work 60-hour weeks, have to make hard decisions, and have to be ready to fire people. To become a CEO, you have to be totally dedicated. Otherwise, you won't be able to handle the stress and sacrifices that come with the job. Since problems will always come up, it's important to work towards something worthwhile. You need to figure out what makes you most excited. If you do what makes you happy for work, the uphill battle won't get you down, and you might even grow to like it. As an example, think about the writer. He decided that he liked writing about dating so much that he wanted to spend his time making a site with tips on how to find a date. At first, it was hard, but because he was so dedicated to his work, he soon realized that problems were actually good for him. After years of hard work and getting tens of thousands of readers, the author was able to make writing a blog his full-time job. There's no point in wishing for a life without problems. The only way to be successful is to fight for something important. On the other hand, it's important not to take on any responsibilities or burdens that won't make you happy. Stop wasting time and energy on things that don't make you happy and be more sure of what you want. Pay attention to the few good things and forget about the rest. Idea 17. We can't move forward in life until we stop playing the victim and start making our own choices. Every year, thousands of runners who run for fun take part in marathons. Because of this, many of them are able to give money to good causes. Many people give up in the middle of a marathon, but those who finish tend to feel very proud of themselves. Imagine that you couldn't choose whether or not to run in a marathon. You had to. No matter how good you were at running, you probably wouldn't enjoy it at all. When you have to do something, it takes away the fun. Many people, unfortunately, go through life as if they had no choice but to be where they are. We tend to blame the world when bad things happen to us, like missing a bus, having a bad job interview, or having a loved one reject us. Take a look at the worst case of this to see what I mean. William James was born into a wealthy family in the United States in the 1800s. He often threw up and had back spasms because of his health problems. When he was young, he wanted to be a well-known painter, but his father kept telling him he wasn't good enough. So he set his sights on becoming a doctor, but he gave up halfway through his studies. James was sick and unhappy and had no one to help him or give him a job, so he thought about killing himself. Then he read the works of Charles Peirce, a philosopher. James was moved by Peirce's main point, which was that everyone must take full responsibility for their own actions and results. James realized that he had been hurting in silence because he put the blame for everything that had gone wrong on things he couldn't change. He felt helpless because he blamed his situation on things outside of himself that he couldn't change, like his illness or his father's opinions. He took full responsibility for his life and choices, and this gave him the confidence to start over. After a lot of hard work, James became a leader in American psychology. So the next time you feel sorry for yourself, think about William James and try being the hero of your own story. Imagine your partner leaving you. It's easy to blame the end of the relationship on how cold and uncaring your ex was, but it's smarter to think about your own part in the breakup. You might not have done your share of the chores or supported your partner when they tried something new. You can learn from your mistakes and avoid making them again if you think about them and try to get better. Because that's the only way your life will get better and you'll be able to enjoy it to the fullest. Idea 18. When we feel like our identity is being threatened, Buddhism can help us stay put. Imagination exercise. You're in a high position at a well-known and respected company. Your coworkers respect you and like working with you. You drive a nice car and dress professionally. You most like being a senior manager. Your job as a senior manager is really what defines you. Think for a moment that you have a chance to reach the top. There are, however, major risks that come with the potential. If you don't do it right, you could lose your job, your car, your respect, and most importantly, your identity. Could you pay for the chance? Few people would take that risk. The author says this is because of Manson's law of avoidance, which says that we avoid anything that could make us lose our sense of who we are. Even though it makes sense to try to avoid bad situations like the ones we just talked about, keeping a secret identity often backfires and causes more problems than it solves. For example, it's common for amateur painters and writers to refuse to sell or share their work in any other way. They're afraid that if they show their work to the public, no one will like it. If they tried it and failed, it would destroy the idea of themselves as great artists that they had built up. So they just give up and don't even try. The bad effects of Manson's law of avoidance can be lessened, though, if you practice Buddhism. Individuality is not real in Buddhist thought. Labels like rich, poor, happy, sad, successful, and a failure are all ideas you make up in your head. Since they aren't real, we shouldn't let them run our lives. Since this is the case, you'll have to learn how to say no to yourself. It's a lot of fun to start over and shed your old skin. For example, you may have always thought of yourself as someone who cares more about their job than their family or hobbies. If you can let go of this limiting idea of who you are, you'll be free to do whatever makes you happy, like spending time with your kids or building model airplanes. Idea 19. If you want to get better, you have to face your flaws and fears and forgive yourself for them. Two people who always have to be right ever get on your nerves. People who think they know everything and won't listen when you tell them they're wrong. Good thing you aren't like that too. You are, unfortunately. We all have times when we fool ourselves into thinking we are right when we are actually wrong. One of the author's close friends just got engaged, for example. Nearly everyone at the wedding agreed that the groom-to-be was a good and kind person, except for the brother of my friend's fiancée. He was sure that his sister's soon-to-be husband would only hurt her, and he couldn't stop judging her for the choice she made. His own sister was one of the many people who saw his mistake. They tried to get him to think that maybe he was going a little crazy, but they didn't succeed. If you don't want to act like this sibling, you have to be willing to think you might be wrong. This is the only way to fight against the biases you already have. This is harder than it seems because we often hide our fears behind wrong ideas. This means that if we are willing to keep looking at our goals and actions, we will find out some hard truths about ourselves. Going back to the sibling who was too critical, it's possible that he felt insecure about himself and was projecting that onto the future groom. Maybe he was jealous of his sister's love life and the fact that she had found love while he had not. Maybe he was jealous of her new boyfriend and the fact that she could pay less attention to him now that she was engaged. He might have been angry because his sister didn't pay more attention to what he wanted. Whatever the reason, he liked to make wrong assumptions instead of facing his own weaknesses. You don't have to make the same mistake, though. If you are willing to question your beliefs and face your fears, you may be able to change the way you act for the better and find more happiness in life. Idea 20. If we don't learn how to control our romantic love, it could hurt us. Romeo and Juliet might be the most famous love story in the world, and yet it's not a happy ending. The lovers kill themselves at the end of a story that includes murder, exile, and blood feuds. The tragic story of the doomed couple shows how dangerous passionate love can be. Studies have shown that a passionate love relationship stimulates the brain in the same way that cocaine does. In other words, you reach the highest point of happiness before coming back down to earth. Then you try to get that high again, maybe not even with the same person, which is a surefire way to break up with someone. In Shakespeare's time, people knew about the dangers of love that is too strong. The bard may have meant Romeo and Juliet to be a satire of passionate longing in all its disastrous glory. Before the 18th century, most couples got together because their jobs went well together, not because they were madly in love. There is no doubt that current circumstances are unique. In today's world, where romantic love is often held up as the ideal, heartbreak is a real possibility. What else can you do? Really? Do you think you should just forget about the idea? That's too far for me. Romantic love is unhealthy if it doesn't meet these conditions. If it does, it's healthy. When both people use the other to get away from their own problems, they are in an unhealthy relationship. For example, they might be trying to avoid facing the truth of their situation by focusing on how much they love each other. Unfortunately, no one is immune to the bad effects of using avoidance instead of real enthusiasm for a long time. But love is real when both people in it do everything they can to make the other person happy. They don't use it to draw attention away from each other. Instead, they're totally committed to each other. Instead of focusing on their own feelings, people in a healthy relationship pay attention to how their partner feels. The help, on the other hand, leaves a lot to be desired. Problems can happen in a relationship when one partner tries to control the other too much, such as by trying to solve the other's problems. In a good relationship, neither person tries to boss the other around. Idea 21, you only have so much time, so use it well. As we've seen in this class, one common way to avoid thinking about our own deaths is to care too much about material things and feel like we deserve them. But Manson thinks that if you know you're going to die, you should save your fucks for important things. Knowing that your time on Earth is limited, and therefore the number of fucks you can give, forces you to make choices about how to spend the fucks you do have. Since you can't live forever and being remembered after you die doesn't matter, these things shouldn't be your top goals. Instead, Manson urges his readers to think about how they can make the world a better place by focusing on good ideas and working hard. In other words, you won't have to worry about dying if you give the right fucks and live a meaningful life.